going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Forbidden Land podcast. How long will this podcast stay on the air before I go to jail? We'll find out. The Supreme Court is going to hear a bunch of cases. And maybe one of those cases will be how long until Dan goes to jail. Who knows? Got my huge cup of water here. Supreme Court is going to be hearing a case about Hawaii open carry laws. Apparently there's gun restrictions in Hawaii about where you can carry a gun. And of course there's gun nuts in Hawaii for some reason who take issue with these gun restrictions. They're also going to hear out a case about the president's ability to issue tariffs. And I think that one's about how Congress is usually the body of the federal government that has to issue tariffs on other countries. Like, they're the ones that negotiate tariffs and all that. So I guess they're going to hear a case about that. And knowing Chief Justice Roberts, they'll probably grant them... They'll probably grant the president full ability to just set tariffs whenever he wants, without congressional approval. Another case they're going to hear out is if Trump can fire Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve, which I suppose would pave the way for him to fire the chairman of the Federal Reserve. They're also going to hear out cases about election maps. So we'll see if... God, the S sounds coming out of my big ass buck teeth today are crazy. I guess they're going to hear out a case about the Texas congressional maps, which I guess would also inadvertently determine whether or not California can go through with drawing up its new congressional maps. Let's see, they're going to hear out if Colorado can continue to ban conversion therapy, and so if that's overturned, it could pave the way for re-legalizing conversion therapy across the country. Not good. Shocker, when you electrocute gay people, it doesn't go over too well. Yeah. Shocker, who would have thought? Electrocution's not a valid form of therapy. And they're going to hear out another case about contraceptive and abortion rights. Yay, as if we haven't gotten shot in the kneecaps enough on that one. There was another case they're probably going to have to hear out soon. Especially because Trump is requesting it. And that is birthright citizenship. The appeals court just ruled against him in a case about birthright citizenship. And, you know, like, shocker. That'd be like if the president could just be like, and your Second Amendment rights, gone. You know, they'd be the exact same thing. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous that he thinks that he can get away with just signing away birthright citizenship. But so here's the problem: is this is just the appeals court. We don't know if the Supreme Court, will rule in favor of the president or not. Let's see. Oh, damn, it's a 3-judge panel of the First U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. They became the 5th federal court since June to either issue or uphold orders blocking the president's birthright order. Whoa. Yeah, I wonder if, because this is one of the most blatant 14th Amendment violations the federal executive branch has tried. I wonder, I wonder if the Supreme Court could realistically, realistically side with the president. I mean, that would completely dismantle the 14th Amendment. I feel like the Supreme Court should have a limit on its power in the sense that it can rule on stuff being in violation of the Constitution or not. But it can't just do away with pieces of the Constitution. You know what I mean? If laws are only as good as how well the Supreme Court will uphold them, there are no laws in this country. Like, there is no concept of a law here anymore. If the Supreme Court can just whisk away whatever law it doesn't like, I mean, that's a full tyrannical dictatorship takeover at that point. You know, if the Supreme Court suddenly was like, oh, the First Amendment, boom, gone. No more free speech. Like, come on. Obviously, that would be bullshit. You know. I'd be pulling out those Andrew Jackson, you know, debunked quote where he's like, go ahead and try to enforce it to the Supreme Court. That quote's debunked, I'm pretty sure, by the way. I don't think he actually said that. As much as I don't like Andrew Jackson, I don't think he really said that to the Supreme Court. We're kind of cooked right now, you know? If the Supreme Court can just outright overrule stuff like this without a second thought, then we might actually be a little cooked. Gotta sit up a little bit, look a little professional. Put my chair at a less than 45-degree angle, Jesus. Or 90-degree angle, I mean. Jesus Christ. Let's see. So as far as I'm aware, the government is still shut down. Trump flips his shutdown approach, leaving Congress to take the heat. What does that even mean? Yeah, we got any updates? Now here's the thing. Why would the White House need to lay off workers if it's not a profit-seeking entity? I don't get that. Senate returns in search of a deal on 6th day of the government shutdown. Damn, we got any capitulations? Let's see. This is a pretty long shutdown, too. How long is the longest government shutdown? Okay. I hate it when it fills in and then goes away like right before. 35 days? Whoa, when was that? Oh, damn, that was during the first administration. Oh, that's so funny. There was a 26-day shutdown in December 2018. No. That has to be an old photo. Because this thing's saying 35. Yeah, it was the 2018 shutdown. It was 35 days. Damn, this is an outdated Vox thing. Yeah, because a few more days would be added after that. Oh, that's so funny. So the first Trump admin takes the record for longest government shutdown. Dude, is he going to take another shutdown? Whoa. Are we going to get another government shutdown? I don't know how they're going to blame Democrats when Republicans are in control of the House and the Senate. Like, I don't know how they keep blaming the Democrats for this. I don't like the Democrats. But, like, the messaging failure on this one, everyone sees that it's the Republicans' fault. You know, like everyone can see that with their own two eyes, right? That the government shutdown is the fault of the executive branch and the Republicans. Because the Republicans are like, how come we can't fit into our budget bill the kill everyone that depends on federal medical care welfare? How come we can't just kill all those people? And the Democrats are like, because that's wrong. And then they're like, well, the Democrats want the government to shut down. Well, as of this recording, we're 6 days in. So, that's fun. I have a friend that works for the government. She's out of work right now. She's kind of curious right now if they'll back pay her any of the money that she's losing right now. And I wonder that too. I also have been getting mail still. I thought the mail service stopped operating during a government shutdown. Unless they're just still running through all the money that they still had left over. But I kind of doubt it. I live in a pretty rural area. Like, I wouldn't have thought, you know, not rural. I live next to a city, but still, like, I would have thought that the postal service would have stopped during all this, right? I'm glad it took the Democrats. I'm not glad about that part. I'm glad the Democrats are actually doing something to grind this administration to a temporary halt. It's a nice breath of fresh air to know that the president is just sitting around waiting for the congressional budget to actually pass. I'm glad that he has to just sit around and wait for that, and he can't really do anything in the interim. It's been nice and refreshing to not have to hear about some new dumb fucking bullshit that the president wants to do. You know, I'm glad that I'm not hearing every 5 minutes now, oh, and the president just signed executive order, kill all poor people bill number 7 this week. So far, 7 this week. It's like, yeah, I'm really glad that I don't have to hear about that as much as I used to. But still, it's like, you know, I almost want the government shutdown to last longer because it's the biggest PR tool to use against the Republicans. Like, right now, the Republicans are absolutely bombing the PR stage. You know, conservatives are at probably the lowest popularity they've ever had. And, you know, this really does tank how the public views them. I mean, people that work in the government sector, folks, they're trying to censor me. The radical right-wing conservatives are trying to censor the Forbidden Land podcast. They cut all the power to my home. And then they stole my mail. I don't know. I didn't have any mail, so I think I'm right about the postal service not coming. But my power went out for like 30 minutes. Ooh, hello. My power went out for like 30 minutes, and I just kind of sat around. I changed my shirt. It is indeed still the same day. Like, I'm not kidding when I say it was only out for like 30 minutes. The recording stopped at like 3 o'clock. What's wild? I don't know why my power went out. They cut power to the whole neighborhood. Like, it wasn't just here, obviously. They cut power to the whole damn neighborhood. And just this neighborhood, too. Nowhere else. This dog ass fucking... You know what it is? It's probably the data centers that they're building. The more they build these data centers and these AI centers and all that shit, the worse it's going to get for people like us. And even the rich are going to feel it, too. I mean, they all operate off the same power grid we do. But it's going to get worse for us. We're going to experience more outages. Our water's going to be filthy. Like, we're going to be running out of water. The world is taking a dark turn. You know, we thought it was getting kind of... Windows, shut up! Oh my God. Give me another notification, why don't we? Holy shit. God. I gotta do not disturb this shit. I don't need to know about Java updates, man. Yeah, it seems that it's just gonna get worse and worse for people like us. In the coming, like, 5 years even. I mean, look at what has happened in just the last 2 to 3 years. You know, the rise of AI. Yeah, the rise of AI and the slow sucking of all of our natural resources. That'll lead to stuff like this, where I'm dealing with a random power outage like every month. I already am, but it's going to increase where I'm losing power like once a week. It's going to be annoying as fuck. All right, let's get back to the side tangent over. Let's get back to the real information and the real news and the real topics. We're keeping it real. Here's some bizarre rant that Trump barfed out of his mouth. When was this? Yesterday? Oof.
I don't want to be politically correct anymore. And history will never forget that it was the SEALs who stormed the compound at Osama bin Laden and put a bullet in his head. Remember that? And please remember, I wrote about Osama bin Laden exactly 1 year ago, 1 year before he blew up the World Trade Center. And I said, you got to watch Osama bin Laden. And
I was sitting in my tower thinking, oh my God, what a beautiful September 11th, 2000 day. You see that Middle East terrorist, Osama bin Laden? I think he's going to blow up the World Trade Center. I'm going to write to the international community. What even is this line of, like, discussion here?
the fake news would never let me get
And the
away with
fake
that
news wouldn't let him get away with that.
Yes, it was true. But I said 1 year before to Pete Hegseth, I said 1 year before, where's Pete? In the book, I wrote, whatever the hell the title, I can't tell you. But I can tell you there's a page in there devoted to the fact that I saw somebody named Osama bin Laden, and I didn't like it, and you got to take care of him. They didn't do it a year later.
I love that. I love that them saying that a high-profile target in the Middle East that the U.S. government was indeed looking into, that Trump is like, you've got to go over there and blow him up. You got to go kill him. Like, yeah, and they ignored Trump, and look at what happened. It's like, no, that's not really what the government was doing. Multiple intelligence agencies were surveying this guy. They were all surveilling this guy. They all knew about him, you know. But like, there are international laws about this kind of stuff. Like, you can't just go into a foreign nation and assassinate a terrorist. Like, you really can't do that kind of stuff unless you have like a pre-established deal with that country's government. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff at play there. You know, do I think the intelligence agencies probably dragged their feet a little bit? Yeah, but it's not because they were like, we can't listen to this New York scam artist billionaire, you know, we can't listen to that guy. You know, we're just going to ignore bin Laden. Yeah, it's actually brave hero Trump that tried to help and save this nation from 9/11. So stupid, man. And then he also says that he told Pete Hegseth. It sounds like he was saying that he told Pete Hegseth back in 2000 about Osama bin Laden, but I'm sure he meant like he told Pete a year ago, you know, like in 2024, not in 2000. I'm sure he just worded it really weird, but still, like, why are we even going on this tangent? Everything is Donald Trump. You know, everything can be credited back to him. This is how he speaks. Like, he's responsible for every good thing. He tried to prevent every bad thing. He's this Jesus-like savior. And that's how he always frames himself, because he's a giant narcissist.
Later, he blew up the World Trade Center, so we got to take a little credit because nobody else is going to give it to me. You know the old story? They don't give you credit, just take it yourself.
See what I mean?
U.S. Navy that dumped his wretched corpse.
Right there. That's exactly what I mean. They don't give you credit, take it yourself. Credit for what, dude? Credit for nothing. Look at where he was. Look at where he was on 9/11. Chilling, calling up news agencies, being like, well, you know, the World Trade Center, it was the tallest building in Manhattan, and I guess now that you really think about it, I guess if you do the math, I guess you could say that the Trump Tower is now the tallest building in New York. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that unbelievable? Like, that's what he was doing on 9/11. It was calling up some random, I don't even, I think it was like a local affiliate station that he called up. He used to say, like, I was on ground zero on 9/11, pulling people out of the rubble. I believe he was there, like, days after the fact. I was there. I actually personally rebuilt the towers myself.
The damage.
When did this air? Oh my God, he was doing this on 9/11?
Ad hoc reporting.
That's so funny that it was literally during, like, in the aftermath of the buildings collapsing. This man calls into a local affiliate and starts bragging about the size of his building.
And getting information to you as fast as we possibly can and making sure that it's accurate at the same time. So
Donald Trump is on the line. I mean, we know him as the man behind lots of real estate in Manhattan. And of course, Donald, I understand you were actually a witness to what happened this morning.
Well, I have a window that looks directly at the World Trade Center, and I saw this huge explosion. I was with a group of people, and I really couldn't even believe it. And even, I think, worse than that, for years I've looked right directly at the building. I'd see the Empire State Building in the foreground and the World Trade Center in the background, and now I'm looking at absolutely nothing. It's just gone, and it's just hard to believe.
Donald, Alan Marcus here. Your building is, the Trump Tower is one of the great tourist attractions in the world. It's well known universally. Are you taking any precautions there in light of what happened at the World Trade Center?
Well,
So they ask him, hey, you have a high profile building in New York. Are y'all taking any security precautions to just in case? Because at that point we didn't know much. You know, we just knew that buildings were flying planes were flying into the buildings. We didn't know how many more buildings were going to be targeted that day. We didn't know that it was going to stop at 4 planes. So, like, reasonable question. Hey, you own a big building in Manhattan, a pretty prominent one. You taking any security precautions?
Alan, we've always had, as you know, very, very strong security, but there's very little you can do about planes crashing into a building. I mean, you look at Larry Silverstein, who's a terrific owner in New York and a very good friend of mine who I just called. I was very worried about him because I assumed maybe he was in the building. He took possession of the building 1 week ago. As you know, he just bought the World Trade Center.
Right.
And he was in his office, and he was getting ready to move into the World Trade Center over the next 2 weeks. So when I just spoke to him, there's nothing you can do when people are going to be bombing planes at your building. Now,
Donald,
I guess maybe the world is going to be changing, and maybe you're going to have F-16s flying all over the city, etc. But it's a pretty tough situation.
Donald, you have one of the landmark buildings down in the financial district, 40 Wall Street. Did you have any damage, or did you know what's happened down there?
Well, it was an amazing phone call I made. 40 Wall Street actually was the second tallest building in
They go, "You got any damage into your building?" Note that when they asked him about security, all he could talk about was, "Oh, I'm very good friends with Larry Silverstein, the guy that owns the World Trade Center properties at the time." And he's like, "You know, what are you gonna do about it?" And then they're like, "You got any damage to your building?" And he's like, "Well, actually, I have the tallest building now in Manhattan."
Downtown Manhattan, and it was actually, before the World Trade Center, was the tallest. And then when they built the World Trade Center, it became known as the second tallest, and now it's the tallest. And I just spoke to my people, and
that is so wild. He just slips that in there, and I don't think anybody picks up on that either.
They said it's the most unbelievable site. It's probably 7 or 8 blocks away from the World Trade Center, and yet Wall Street is littered with 2 feet of stone and brick and mortar and steel. And there are thousands of people walking over the debris over the Brooklyn Bridge, where they're sending them out over the Brooklyn Bridge to Brooklyn, and then I guess...
You know what's crazy? A little bit of Donald Trump lore. So the Freedom Tower in New York City, the World Trade Center, one tower that is called the Freedom Tower. When they were shopping around for developers to design and build a building in Manhattan to, a building in Manhattan to, replace the World Trade Center. Oh, Jesus. When they were shopping around for a developer for that, one of the contenders was Donald Trump. And one of the buildings, let me look it up. The building he wanted to build, the World Trade Center before 9/11, New Yorkers will tell you now, like, oh, it's a landmark icon of the city. When you think of New York, you think of the World Trade Center. And that was probably true, like now, and true to some extent back then. But for the most part, for the most part, is that a plane going overhead? For the most part, the World Trade Center was considered 2 giant, ugly buildings that created a giant eyesore in Manhattan. And, that's something that you won't really hear nowadays from people. But like back then, you asked an average New Yorker what they thought of the World Trade Center, and they probably thought they were pretty fucking ugly. Like, that's the thing, is they usually didn't like how the World Trade Center looked. Which makes this all the more funny that Donald Trump wanted to build something called the Twin Towers 2. It would have looked just like the original towers, and they would stand right beside the memorials of the original towers. Apparently, it also says it would have used the surviving exterior panels of the original towers. See, that's so dumb. Yeah, Donald Trump really spearheaded this. He really wanted these to win the bid. They were like extra reinforced on the center columns, built out of more sturdy material. They were a little bit different in design, but not really. And like, here's an article about him in 2005 calling the Freedom Tower disgusting and a pile of junk. And it's because he was actively competing with these other developers to have a piece of the World Trade Center pie. This is the concept that ended up winning out. And I know they modified some of it, but yeah, he wanted to build these ugly piles of fucking bullshit. It's just these 2 twin tower buildings that look the same, but they're like more reinforced. And so they look a little different. Like, look at that. They just look like giant cheese graters. And yeah, here's the Freedom Tower, the One World Trade Center. complex. But yeah, Donald Trump personally wanted to have a hand in building the World Trade Center again, and they basically told him no. Yeah. You know, I think I've talked about it in a previous episode, but there's actually a World Trade Center building, or at least one that looks like it. The Bok Tower. The Bok Tower was designed by the exact same guy that designed the World Trade Center, and I shit you not, it's quite literally like a quarter of the size of the actual World Trade Center. Look at this. It looks just like the World Trade Center, but it's just a fourth the size in every dimension, pretty much. So it's half the height, or not half the height. I think it's like a quarter of the height, quarter of the width, you know, quarter of the length, all that stuff. It's kind of cool, though. It is like an exact replica, basically, of the World Trade Center. Take a shot how many times I've said WTC during this podcast. Every time I've said World Trade Center, you'd probably have alcohol poisoning at this point. Remy, what? I don't know why this dog is barking at me. Maybe she likes 9/11. I think she agrees with 9/11. Is one of my dogs a terrorist? Oh my god. What a crazy twist. Anyway, I think I had more on the video, but I don't really care. TBH about what he had to say about that. I think he's just going fucking crazy. I think he's going down the cuckoo route, losing his mind. I don't think he's gonna survive his full term. But I said the same thing about Biden, and that dude is somehow kicking it with like stage 4 ass cancer or some shit like that. So I don't know. Maybe my presidential death radar is off tilt, but I feel like Trump is so old at this rate and so visibly deteriorated. He might be in somehow worse shape than Biden. I don't know. Like, Biden's just an old man. Like, he just suffers from being an old grandpa. Trump is like senile. Like, he's like crazy. You know, he was basically a celebrity. And celebrities age rough, man. So it's possible that, it's possible that he just doesn't survive this term, but I don't know. I don't want to say anything definitive. I saw that he moved that UFC White House fight to his 80th birthday, and I shit you not, all the comments were like, his ass ain't making it that far, dog. I was like, damn, they all think he's gonna not make it to his 80th birthday. So yeah. All right, let's look at some horrifying shit beyond human comprehension. Funny time's over. Like, actually. Because I saw this footage and I was absolutely horrified. And I think back in November or so of 2023, I think I talked about on this show the early journalistic photos back when Al Jazeera could kind of operate in the area. I talked about the devastation that Israel had already brought upon the Palestinians just 1 month into their absolute massacre of the Palestinians. At the time, you could still just call it a massacre, and after like 2 months, it escalated to like, no, their goal is genocide at this point. Like, it became very clear that their goal was genocide. A lot of people were already suspecting it was going to become that, but it became like obvious to anybody with a functioning like brain that it was an active, ongoing, intended to be genocide. And even back then, like, the photos of the destruction and devastation were pretty bad. But so far, we haven't really gotten much footage or pictures or anything out of Gaza other than what Palestinians have posted on social media themselves. But the horrifying bit is that, sorry, dude, I don't know what's going on. Sorry. The horrifying bit is that new numbers have been coming out that the casualty, or I should really say just the death toll alone from famine, from munitions, from disease, all of that has totaled up to be about 300,000 from what I've read. And I think it actually might be more than that. Let me make sure. Because the number used to go up every day, and then they killed and pushed out all the people getting accurate numbers. Where is it? There were new numbers that came out, but it was in like the hundreds of thousands, like a crazy high number. Apparently even an ex-Israeli commander confirmed that it was that high, but like these researchers have estimated that it's well over 200,000, probably closer to 300,000 at this point, which is an insane amount of people. You know, I don't know how someone with a conscience can look at what's going on in Gaza right now and still have the audacity to look people like me in the eye and say, well, it's just a complicated issue. I'm sorry. There's nothing complicated about an authoritarian colonial, country's military dropping like 18 nukes worth of munitions on Gaza and killing hundreds of thousands of people. There is no justification for that. If you're going to sit around and say that the Native American genocide is wrong, and even go as far as saying maybe we shouldn't have dropped the nukes on Japan, but then you turn around and say, well, Israel's just defending itself against Hamas, I can't take you seriously. Like, you have Western colonial brain at that point. You've come to terms with some stuff that does sound awful that we've, I guess, moved on from, where we can go, yeah, we did that stuff back then, but we don't do it anymore. I mean, come on. I know that you've probably made peace with that in your mind, but this is an active, ongoing genocide. If you're still on the fence about this, I can't take you seriously. I can't look you in the eyes and know that behind those eyes, in your brain, you're justifying mass baby murder. Just for the sake of, like, any reason, not wanting to appear anti-Semitic, because that's the way that Israel's framed any criticism of what they're doing. Whether it's you genuinely are just so misinformed about what's going on, or you're genuinely falling for Israeli propaganda that Hamas is like everywhere. Like, no matter what the reason is, the fact that I can look you in the eyes and know that behind those eyes you think baby murder is okay for one of those reasons, I can't take you seriously. I can't trust somebody like that. That's leading into this. We have drone footage from an Israeli drone of what Gaza looks like. A small preview of what Gaza looks like currently. And it's horrible. I mean, look at this. It's like unrecognizable. It's so foggy from all the bombs they've dropped. Everything's just gone. It looks surreal. It genuinely looks surreal. Eamon Animations recently released a video about H3. And one of the bits, spoiler alert, one of the bits is he animates, while Ethan's talking about how beautiful multicultural Israel is, he animates Gaza as it's flying over. And it's like a very basic looking version of like a destroyed Gaza. And like, I was like, oh, okay, I get the imagery here, but that's not really what it looks like. It looks more, it looks a little bit different from that. This footage confirms to me that that's exactly what it looks like. It looks just like that animation where everything is destroyed. And this is horrible. I mean, this is not even the whole area. This is a small piece of the strip. Just completely destroyed. Look, there's still like dust being blown up off the ground, like kicked up off the ground from something. Where they're probably still like actively bombing the area. I mean, that's insane. I don't know how as an Israeli, I mean, I know how because they've all been brainwashed pretty much by their government. But like, I don't know how as a person you can live in Israel, look out at Gaza, because I'm sure there's points in Israel where you can see into Gaza over the wall. I'm sure there's areas where you can see it. And look out at that, see all that destruction and devastation, and feel okay with that. You know? It's so disgusting how much people justify this kind of level of destruction and devastation. And according to the federal government, because they're not even hiding it at this point, the U.S. federal government has basically confirmed that out of the entire Gaza Strip, let me pull up the Gaza Strip. Oh my God. Pull up a picture of a map of the Gaza Strip. According to the U.S. federal government, they have seemingly claimed that the IDF, let's see, the IDF controls about as much as this much of the strip. Let me pull this up. Oh my God, hold on. So they're claiming that the IDF controls as much as this much of the strip. So all of this has been completely decimated. Cool, a research poll. All of this has been completely decimated and evacuated, according to the federal government. That the IDF has completely evacuated and destroyed this whole area pretty much. They've torn through Rafah and evacuated people along the entire border into this little area on the coast. And, you know, they've basically pushed them out of Gaza City at this point. That's a lot of destruction. Even if the ceasefire plan goes through, let's say Hamas agrees to the ceasefire plan in its entirety, and it even seemed like they were willing to agree on some pieces, and then that day Israel killed 70 people in Gaza. So yeah, you can see how much Israel's planning to honor the ceasefire plan. But let's say the ceasefire plan goes through and the IDF withdraw back to like this borderline. You know, it says in the official plan they're going to withdraw to like this borderline, right? What do the Palestinians have left at this point? What do they have left? You know, it's going to take them hundreds of years, billions of dollars to rebuild all of this. You know what I mean? When people ask me why I support the one-state solution and not the two-stater, it is because that's exactly the kind of bullshit that Israel gets away with, where they get to destroy this entire area, this entire piece of land. They get to absolutely destroy it, and then under a two-state solution, they get to just withdraw their troops and basically let the Palestinians rebuild all that on their own. No reparations, and also they lose the right to return. I want them to be able to return. I don't buy into this whole, you know, if you know, to quote a certain content creator, you know, if we do the one-state solution, it becomes, in his words, if the Palestinians outnumber the Jews, it becomes open season for the Jews. That is what people have said. And it's racist. It's wrong. It's just a way to deny Palestinians the right to return. That's all it is. It's just racism. It's Jim Crow era racism. That is the exact same lying horseshit that slave owners said in the 1800s. Anytime the issue of abolition came up during pre-Civil War, during the Civil War, post-Civil War Reconstruction era, anytime the idea of letting freed black people participate in greater society, anytime that ever came up, slave owners and horrific racist white people would all say that, like, oh, the savage black man. What is going on? That the savage black man can't participate in society because they would uprise and kill their slave owners. That's what they used to say. Jim Crow was a similar system to prevent black people from participating in society. And they would run the same lines where they said black people were too savage to live alongside white people, that they were constantly murdering and raping and assaulting white people, especially white women. They all used that same rhetoric, and they used the exact same points against the Palestinians, that they say the savage Palestinians or savage Muslims can't integrate into Israeli society. When in reality, it's the barbaric Israelis who are all these super racist people who've been brainwashed to be Zionists by their government, who all have these preconceived notions about the Palestinians, the type of people who live in the West Bank illegally and throw trash on their Palestinian neighbors below them. Those are the people that can't handle living in a society with Palestinians. But clearly that's possible. You know, America, as racist as it still is, it's definitely not 1920s Jim Crow. It's definitely not like that anymore. You know, there is now a sizable chunk of white people that are not like that. Granted, though, it's still pretty bad, but it's not as bad as it used to be. You know, the only part that has actually gotten worse is the wealth disparity in this country. But that's a whole different topic. I'm saying it is very much possible for the Palestinians to live alongside the Israelis in one unified Palestine. You know, I used to do that dumb bullshit where I tried to say they could compromise on the name, call it Israel Palestine. No, call it Palestine. That's what it is. It's what it's called historically. You know, that land, first of all, that's not even historic Israel, the current borders that they have. But that land hasn't been even called something like Israel in thousands of years. Call it Palestine. There you go. One unified Palestine with equal civil rights and reparations. That's what should happen. You know. Silence me now, power company. And you know, the liberal attitudes are changing on this topic, because Critical actually made a video talking about this. Granted, he talked about Diddy first, but I think that's a nice transition. That's a nice transitional topic into a topic like Israel.
Fucking Benjamin Netanyahu just openly stating in front of the whole world his plans on brainwashing because so many people are turning on Israel. So he was asked like what he plans to do about it. And you know what? Since I'm just yapping, I'm just gonna go ahead and go on this topic now too.
I guess I'm curious about what's another game plan if we lose evangelical support for the state of Israel. What's our backup plan to be strong, like outside the diaspora?
Christian influencers. Okay, you said we talked about the woke right, and you said I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant observation. The woke Reich, because these people, you know, they're not any different from the woke.
Basically, Critical talks about censorship of any criticism of Israel, no matter what side you're on. That's what he talks about in this video. If normal people, the average content creator that appeals to a broad audience, if that kind of creator can speak up about this kind of thing, you know the attitude is shifting on this topic. You know, don't do the whole, oh, well, don't gatekeep it. Don't be like, well, I've been against this since the beginning. You know, you should have gotten with it. You should embrace and bring in the people that are getting on board now. We need all the people we can get. So yeah, that's this week's episode. You know, maybe next week I won't have rights anymore. Maybe I'll be in jail. We'll see how that ceasefire goes. I'll be keeping an eye on it. I'll definitely try to give any updates if I learn about it. But I don't have high hopes for it. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the terms are very unfavorable to the Palestinians, which is insane because Hamas has already agreed to like some of the major points, like stepping down and releasing hostages. They've already agreed to stuff like this. The problem is Israel, who continues to bomb them during ceasefire negotiations. Like, come on. Hold off on the bombing while you're doing negotiations. That doesn't make any sense to continue bombing during peace negotiations or ceasefire negotiations. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that pisses off Trump, funny enough. So maybe we'll see another strongly worded, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, comment from Donald Trump. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/forbiddenlandpod. I think I'm going to finally do it. I think I'm going to finally pull the trigger on making a new promo video for the podcast. It's been because I want to adjust the prices and lower them, and I can't do that unless I make a new promo video. So I think that's what I'm gonna have to do, and I'm so sad about it, man. Like, the promo video is the last thing I ever recorded in that old room, and I'm really sad about it. But I have to do it. I want to lower the price on Patreon, or at least like drop the tier of what tier you get access to bonus content on. Because $10 is pretty steep, I'll admit it. A good $5 or $6 tier for bonus content, I think is good. So we'll see what I do with that. But yeah. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You can find this podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that cool stuff. And yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Peace. My hands are wet because of the water.